Baywatch is the newest comedy film and is the remake of the television series with David Hasslehoff, Baywatch. It is directed by Seth Gordon and stars Dwayne Johnson, Alexandra Daddario, Zac Efron, and a couple of other people whose names I don't know. So I didn't have very high hopes for this movie at all. I have a very specific taste in comedy, especially when it comes to movies. I look for a lot more of smart humor, more so than stupid humor, which is definitely what this movie was being marketed around. So, like, for instance, I enjoy movies like Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, or Shaun of the Dead, or The Big Lebowski. But I enjoyed this movie more than I thought I would, but in no way does that mean it was good. This is a very bleh kind of movie, and I'll get into why. I'll start with what I liked about it. I never thought I'd say this. Zac Efron was the most interesting part of this movie, and The Rock is in it. Okay, Zac Efron, I will say, credit to the guy, because he's grown on me in the past couple years. I enjoy the movie Parkland. It's an underseen movie. It's about JFK and the hospital after the fact when he was shot. It's a very interesting movie. He's very good in it. He's grown on me these past couple years. I didn't see Mike and Dave, but he's done a very good job outshining like what he's done in the past, and that's very hard for some people to do, especially Zac Efron, because he was so cemented in that. So I gotta give him kudos for that. He's the most interesting part of this movie simply because he's the only one that has a character, so I kind of found myself attached to him. Like, Dwayne Johnson was fun to watch just because he's Dwayne Johnson, but Zac Efron was actually, in a way, having a performance. So there was something for me to like there, and I kind of enjoyed his character. He had some good lines, he had some good wit. But it was almost a double-edged sword, because the comedy in this movie is so specific on being ridiculous that, like, they built a character, and then they would want him to say a line, and it would go completely against that character, and it would be like a scene after they had just had a moment with him being a character. So it never fit. But there was still some intrigue with his character and going, okay, this guy actually has need to the plot. I understand why he's here. This movie has funny moments. I'm not going to lie to you. There are moments that I laughed. A comedy has one job to do. One job to do, and if they succeed at it, they've done their job. Their job is to make you laugh. I wouldn't call this movie unsuccessful in doing that for me, but it's certainly not successful. There are scenes and moments and lines that made me laugh in this movie, but not consistently enough to the point where I would call this a good comedy movie. That every now and then I would laugh, but it just wasn't enough. And I'm going to get into more of that why later, because comedy is subjective, and there is a realm between what people think is funny and what people don't think is funny, but there is also a correct way to do comedy and an incorrect way to do comedy, and there's a reasoning behind that, and I'll get into it in a second. But yeah, there are solid scenes and jokes, and I think a lot of that comes from the charisma of these guys. All of the actors in this seem to enjoy what they're doing, and that's a good thing and a bad thing, because, like, it didn't feel like they were trying very hard, but at the same time, when actors look like they're having fun, you kind of have fun with them. But I don't know, I feel like watching the behind-the-scenes featurette would be more entertaining than watching this movie. Just watching all these actors kind of fuck around and have fun feels like it would be more fun than the actual script and direction that was put into this movie. Speaking of which, there are interesting moments of direction. There are funny moments where Seth Gordon did something interesting, and it actually ended up lending itself to what was going on at that moment, whether it was like an action scene, or whether it was a building scene, or a character building scene, that is, or whether it was just a comedy scene. There are interesting choices of direction, specifically the first scene. With that, however, there are also some really bad choices in terms of direction. They use a green screen for a lot of scenes, and it is incredibly noticeable and incredibly bad. There are also a lot of shaky cam moments that, like, you honestly can't see what's going on. And it's almost nauseating, because it'll go just from a straight shot to a fucking ridiculously shaky cam shot and then back to a regular shot. And they do this so often that it starts to become incredibly irritating and, like I said before, nauseating. There's one specific instance that's sticking in my head that I can't fucking get out because it's like that. It didn't work. So yes, there are interesting moments of direction that work. You can kind of tell Seth Gordon had a vision for where he wanted to take this movie, but then he goes like Paul Greengrass Bourne movie shit, and it just didn't work. Primarily because most directors don't know how to do shaky cam. There are a few. Alejandro Iñárritu knows how to do it. Paul Greengrass knows how to do it. J.J. Abrams knows how to do it. I think those would be the three that, like, if you're not them, please don't try. Now let's get into what I didn't like, because that's kind of what I liked. Again, I don't have very much to say about this movie, because, like, you can't... It's hard to review a movie like this, because it's made to be stupid. But the plot is fucking awful. The plot is fucking terrible. There's some villain that, like, wants to do something with real estate, so she sells drugs and then kills people because money, I think. Like, it's so weak and just so boring that every time in the first hour of the movie they would cut to it, I would get bored and just go, okay, go back to the lifeguards doing lifeguard stuff. But the problem is, you hit the second hour, and the movie becomes completely based around this plot line. And the movie gets really fucking boring really quickly, because it's a really weak storyline that makes absolutely no fucking sense. So you have that as being my strongest problem with this movie, was it continuously pulled me out of it. And then you get into that second hour and it's completely centered around it. And I just got tired of this fucking movie so quickly because it is so nonsensical in a movie that's supposed to be funny. There's like weird dramatic shit going on and like weird violent shit going on. And like it didn't mesh. And like it's just a very weak plot even for a movie like this. This is what I was talking about between good and bad comedy earlier. There is a way to do good and bad comedy, and a lot of it comes down to timing. There's no timing in this movie. There's zero timing in this movie. They just kind of say shit. Like, it was weird. It was almost like the guy that wrote this wanted it to be like Aaron Sorkin ping pong dialogue, to the point where it's not funny because they don't lead you into the joke, or they don't give the joke time to sink in. The joke just kind of sails you by, so you almost miss it in a way, and you don't have time to laugh at it, even if it is funny. That's a very big problem with this movie. A movie that's specifically tailored to comedy. Like I said, there are moments that do it right, but there is this ridiculous fucking dancing scene that this one character does, and it is so fucking terrible because there's no timing to it. It even cuts away in the middle of it to go to some other boring scene. There is no timing in this movie. That's either due to the editing, the screenwriting, or delivery, but there's certainly blame to be dealt to all three of those things, because I'd say a good 80% of these jokes don't land because of that. Oh my god, okay, this is the most predictable movie I've seen probably in years. It is the most by the books, scene for fucking scene, template-based movie that even the characters are just pulled straight from screenwriting 101, amateur filmmaking. Like, I sat down in my chair with like this vision of how the movie was probably gonna pan out, and it turned out it went exactly the fucking way I thought it would. Not like kind of. But no. I'm talking like this thing, just scene for fucking scene, I knew how this thing was gonna pan out. And like, that became a very strong problem because I was continuously pulled out of this movie. John Bass, who plays Ronnie, I don't know if it's his writing or if it's his performance, but he is the only character in which I didn't have a single part or a single scene that I never laughed at. he was the most annoying fucking character in this entire movie. It is really, really bad. It's either his writing or his performance or both. I think a lot of it is that this kid is definitely a typecast. He's your classic fat Jewish kid. And, like, it's not funny. I guess they just kind of needed him in this movie. Because you need a fat Jewish kid in your comedy movie. But, like, he wasn't funny. So, every time he appeared on screen, I was like, okay, what cringy, dumb shit is he gonna do now? And sure enough, he would do some cringy, dumb shit. And that was the only character that I really disliked, or the only performance I really disliked. Except for, like, Priyanka Chopra, but I think that's because her character was weak. Like, it really reflected how by the books this movie was. Because that character and the entire plotline of the movie, you know exactly what's going to happen to them. And they almost bounced back on each other to the point where you didn't care about either of them. So, like, you had this really bad dynamic between character and plotline and script. And this one guy was always the one I was reflecting on because Dwayne Johnson has charisma, Zac Efron has a character, and he's just, what? He's nothing. So, I'm being an asshole. The girls in this movie, they're not great. The one girl I don't know, the one blonde girl, I don't know who she is. I have no idea who she is. Alexandra Daddario is a very good actress who has been in very good things, like True Detective and nothing else, but, like, they at least have something to them. Like, there's something that's there. And this guy has nothing. It's infuriating. The final thing I'll talk about is scenes just kind of jump around. It's either an editing thing or a writing thing. But, like, there are scenes where they shouldn't be, and there are cuts in the middle of scenes that shouldn't be there. And the one specific part I noticed is between the opening and the second scene. It's like this really kind of interesting scene with Dwayne Johnson saving someone, and then just goes right into the fucking story. And it feels so rocky and, like, shifted that it just doesn't fit. And it happens a lot, and it ends up being really poor to this movie, and, like, that's a big problem with the plot, too, is, like, the plot is boring and not interesting, and I didn't care, and I kept being yanked out of it. The scenes being jumbled all over the place was not very helpful with that. So, overall, most people are going to enjoy this movie. Most audience members are going to enjoy this movie. It is a wacky, ridiculous, stupid, R-rated comedy that mainstream audiences are going to love. That being said, there are so many better comedy movies to watch. This thing is below average. It's not a good movie, but it's not the worst thing I've ever seen. It didn't make me fucking angry like whatever the fuck last week was. I don't even remember. Pirates of the Caribbean. That shit drove me insane. This movie, I had a harmless fun during. I didn't hate this movie, and most people aren't going to hate this movie. Most people are going to enjoy this movie for what it is. So check it out. It's worth a watch. It's not making any money. But it's probably the best thing out right now, which is kind of sad to say. Like, the newest release, that is. It's fucking better than Pirates, that's for sure. It's better than that shit. So, what did you guys think? Have you seen Baywatch? Did you not see Baywatch? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you all next time.